What is up, everybody, and welcome to episode 8 of the Talk Nerdy With Me podcast. I'm your host, Nicholas Merrington, and I'm joined by James Creel. How you doing, James?
I'm good.
No, man, that's too busy. It's too busy. Look at this little X-Wing here. You see, it doesn't... You don't even notice there's an X-Wing there probably until I told you, because that's how nice. It just looks like a lush forest.
Yeah, but mine, how much cooler does that look?
It's just...
Like he's got his hand, he's got a cool red glove, he's got a trench coat.
I mean, does he ever take his gloves off? Why does he need to pull down on a glove, you know?
Because it looks cool.
Okay. How you doing, James?
Not too bad. Had a late night last night, but otherwise, I'm okay.
That's good.
I just want to go sleep sometime soon.
Was your late night due to games or to a book or something?
No. Electra had a family here, and so
for those of you who don't know, Electra is his flatmate.
Yeah, it ended up being Cards Against Humanity and drinking.
Oh no.
Yeah, that was fun.
No, so that's why you're probably looking so forward to sleeping tonight.
Yeah. Going to bed at like 1 or 12:31 and then having to work from 8 till 4:30 makes you really tired. Go figure.
I would imagine. But I hope you're not too tired, because we need you so we can talk about video games. Because if you didn't know, this is the show where we talk about all things video games, and we love to talk about, chat, discuss, argue about all things we love about video games. And if you want to be a part of the show, you can write in with a question, or you can answer a question, and you can send that to talknerdywithme21@gmail.com, and go give us a follow on Instagram at talknerdywithmepodcast. This week we're going to be talking all about Game of the Year. So far, obviously we are coming up to the end of the year, but there are a lot of games that are going to be coming out relatively soon, and on top of that, 4 new consoles, I should say. So in this episode, we're kind of going to be breaking down what we see as our Game of the Year so far, as well as talking about what our Game of the Year is in kind of a different category of just talking about games that maybe did not release this year that we've played for the first time. And we're just going to jump straight into it. But the first thing we're going to jump into is our Game of the Year so far, a game that has released in 2020. And I think the best way maybe to do it is, James, maybe we each just list the games we played this year, and then we can kind of give our Game of the Year, talk about it a bit, and then maybe give some honorable mentions after that. So would you like to kick us off? What new games did you play this year?
Only actually The Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, and now Marvel's Avengers. Really, it was quite slow in terms of brand new games. Most of what I played was more backlog stuff, I guess.
I mean, a lot of that was due to delays. If you look at it, this time last year, by this point in the year, we were supposed to have had Marvel Avengers in like May. Watch Dogs Legion should have been out. Cyberpunk should have been out.
Yeah.
I think it would have looked very different.
Sad about Cyberpunk. It's soon.
But yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. The games I played this year are Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, and Marvel's Avengers. But an extra one that I have is Animal Crossing New Horizons, which is definitely a Game of the Year contender for me. But I think without further ado, let's just jump straight into it. James, what is your Game of the Year so far?
So far, I think I actually have to give it to Ghost of Tsushima. Over, like, the Marvel's Avengers was never going to get it. So out of Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima, I'm definitely just going to go with Ghost. It's just, I think I had more fun playing it.
Nice.
Do you want me to give a more in-depth reason, or do you want to list yours first?
If you want to give a more in-depth reason, mine's different to yours, so you can go ahead.
I think you go, so then we have both of them out in the open.
Okay, then we can have a discussion about it. So mine's not Ghost of Tsushima. Mine was actually between The Last of Us Part 2 and Animal Crossing. Both games, hitting at such like hectic times. Animal Crossing coming out right at the beginning of lockdown, and Last of Us coming out right in the middle when everyone was very lonely and forced to stay at home, obviously. But my Game of the Year is The Last of Us Part 2. And after thinking about it and the recency bias of it, it's been so long since I played that game now. the impact that game had on me and just the emotions I felt throughout the game, not just at the story beats, but the little things like Ellie picking up a guitar and playing a song and that kind of stuff. It really resonated with me, and it stuck with me for a long time, and it still sticks with me. So yeah, my game of the year is probably The Last of Us. Well, no, it is so far The Last of Us Part 2. But yeah, I don't know. Do you want to go first? You can maybe say why Ghost of Tsushima is yours over the other games.
Well, with Ghost, I think it was just more that, like, Last of Us as well, I agree it was brilliant, but there is an element of it that, like, I've spoken about it with you before. There's narrative things I had a problem with. There's just things about some of the story choices that to me just wasn't paced well, and it just kind of impacted the experience a lot. Then there's also all of that, the controversy that was around the studio itself has an impact for me on it. Like, no one's ever really cleared that up. And there's just a lot of messiness around the release. Marvel's Avengers is just...
It's perfect.
Well, I mean...
It's absolutely
yeah,
perfect.
I mean, the amount of games we can get into, the amount of games we actually can get into to play together.
They're not bugs, they're features.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's just a feature that we lost all of the cosmetics we got from the campaign for no reason.
It was just a feature that I almost had to restart the whole campaign because I hit a bug.
That game's just, it's a live service. I don't see a live service ever really being a game of the year contender properly. Just because they don't really have enough and they always seem to launch broken. But Ghost specifically for me, just a lot of it is also because it's just a breath of fresh air. Like, there's not been a game that looked that way in like a long time. There hasn't been a game that's had that has melded realism with stylistic design as well. Because, like, when we think about stylistic games, we also often think about like Legend of Zelda or Persona or stuff, but those are completely stylized. There's nothing to them that says real world. So, like, I really love this whole this mesh between the two that came from Ghost. And then the gameplay was just solid. Like, the stealth, like I said, it went from being something that I thought was annoying to something I'm like, okay, I realize when and why I need this. And I was like I spoke about with you, it fits into the narrative so well as to when I made that realization was really close to when Jin made the realization himself that he needed to do it versus being a samurai. Also, the combat is just great. Like, the standoffs, the different stances, like, it took a bit to get used to, but then afterwards I was just like, oh, it was so good. And the whole design, the things that they achieved in that game of minimal HUD design was just amazing as well. Like, everything was guided by using just visual indicators in the game. So you never were staring at the bottom. Well, this would be bottom left for this, the bottom left corner, the little mini map. You were always looking at the whole screen. I'm like, yeah, what it did for like a game that's it just felt fresh. It didn't feel like something that was exactly what I've played before. It felt like it actually did enough that was completely brand new, to me at least.
I must agree with all your points. I also thought it was a stunning game. I think, like you said, the way that they were able to introduce like this stylistic art style with the colors and that in a real world place. First of all, I think Japan's the only place you can do that. And secondly, I'd say that like they just did that so well. And that's a good point you made. Like, something like Persona is really appealing to the eye. Whereas a lot of real world games are very much gray and brown, and this game just turned that on.
The curse of the early 2000s, no, the early 2010s, yes. When the first person shooters and the wall huggers took over.
But yeah, I loved Ghost, but I have to give it to Last of Us, and I'd also say Last of Us was a stunning game. To me, it looked like it could have been running on the PS5 when I was playing it, and I'm playing on a base PS4, not even a Pro. Like, also the colors they were able to get out of just the greens in that game, like the grass in that being so lush, and I thought it was absolutely stunning. Story-wise, your points, I do hear them. I did not have the same experience though while playing through the game. For me, everything flowed so well, and I had I went in knowing absolutely nothing and was pleasantly and unpleasantly surprised throughout my 20 hours of the game. And it's actually, I think, something that kind of shows how important it is to me is that I wanted to get the platinum of the game as soon as I'd finished it, and I heard it was like relatively chilled. Like, it was a bit time consuming. You have to go and redo each chapter and find all the collectibles.
Heard it from me.
Yeah, no,
because I did that.
And I actually didn't. I started doing it and I didn't want to. I hated playing these chapters out of sequence because in my head they all belong to this one overarching like narrative. You know, like there's this one story they're trying to tell, and I felt like experiencing a piece of that at a time was kind of ruining what it was for me. So I haven't actually gone back and platinumed it, and I think that I will definitely be playing that game again straight through without trying to collect things like you said you did on your second playthrough, of just going straight through with the story and experiencing that again. But the game itself, I thought was beautiful. I thought the sound design was amazing. The music blew me away, just like the first game did. It had way too many touching moments, actually, with my favorite definitely being the Take On Me that Ellie plays on the guitar quite early in the game. And just, I just thought that even the gameplay was, I didn't think they could improve on The Last of Us Part 1, but after playing that, if I were to go back to The Last of Us Part 1, I would really start to see problems with it. Just not problems that the game's broken, but problems that things The Last of Us Part 2 did so well that I wish they would have done in the first game. Like, I feel like they really just took the already solid gameplay from the first game and they built on that. And just little things like giving the enemies names, you know, that when you take out a random guy, his friend will call out his name, and you know, that was just such a little touch, but it's something that I really appreciated. And yeah, so I definitely have to give my game of the year so far to The Last of Us Part 2.
Now, I can agree with a lot of what you said. For me personally, though, I did find that the soundtrack did not actually compare to the first. I weirdly didn't think that there was... I don't mean like the songs they sung. I mean the actual game soundtrack. Like, it just didn't... It didn't feel like there's anything that stood out as much as the music of the first game. I don't know why. I just found that I didn't find any song that stood out as much. And then, yeah, I also agree that there's things there that, like, the little details that they did into that game were amazing. Like, there's no game I can think of aside from that has such an attention to tiny, tiny details, which is, I mean, if you've got the time to do that, it's amazing. Like, also, it must be so complex to have thought about everything. Yeah. Like, every little item that you had to think about to get that right was just, it was great. But weirdly, I also find that I also a little bit disagree with you on the touching moments. I kind of prefer the moments from part 1. Like, I still feel like that giraffe scene, that nothing from part 2 tops that.
Yeah.
I don't know why. You remember, like, that scene where they just... I don't know. For me, that's still like my all-time, like, most touching moment from that series for me that I can think of.
Yeah, I would say that the giraffe scene from Last of Us Part 1 was my most touching moment as well. I'd say not necessarily heartbreaking. There's a lot of other scenes.
Yeah,
I'd say Last of Us Part 2 has my most heartbreaking scene, which I did not expect to take away from the opening of Last of Us Part 1, but it definitely did for me personally.
Oh, sorry. I was about to.
I'm just trying not to say spoilers. So I'm saying Last of Us Part 1, the opening was the most heartbreaking scene I'd experienced in a video game, I'd say. But Last of Us Part 2 practically made me, like, throw that idea away, you know. But yeah, I agree. Touching moments, I'd say, the giraffe scene are still probably the best. But I think experiencing that Take On Me scene, like, I know I keep saying this over and over again, but I got up at 4 a.m. to start that game because I was leaving PE that afternoon. And, you know, at 4 a.m. your emotions are a little different to around lunchtime. And at like 6 a.m. I finally reached that point where she played that song and almost started forming tears in my eyes. I don't know why. Maybe it was because I was tired. Maybe it's because I was just emotional, but I think it was just a really good moment and I was blown away. And I'd say it's a close contender, but I agree. Last of Us Part 1, I feel like has more iconic scenes, and it has more special, that I feel like their scenes are more special and people remember them for longer because it was the original. Yeah.
I feel like it is it's not like it's a very old game, but I would welcome a Last of Us Part 1 remake in the Last of Us Part 2 engine.
Oh, yes. I wouldn't mind that.
Thinking about that. Like, I wouldn't mind having the improved combat, if they added some verticality, so some of the places you could enter that like didn't have upstairs, they just now give them an upstairs for combat. It'd be pretty cool. Like I'd be down for that, but that's a completely separate topic.
Just before we move on, I'd like to make a little comment that to Naughty Dog and to Sucker Punch, please stop putting dogs in your game so we have to kill. It's not nice. I've never enjoyed killing a dog, and both these games have a lot of them. And they're very irritating, but at the same time, it doesn't make it easier to kill them. So if you would mind just patching that out, thank you. That'll be quite
I disagree with you. It made it fairly easy for me.
No, man. Are you a cat guy?
The game just trains you that these are the most annoying enemies, thus kill them first. It's the same. Like, I get it when it's like a movie or something, because it's like a real dog and you have to watch it actually get shot. But when it's like, I'm the main character here. I've got things to do. You're in my way.
Nice.
Same as all the humans.
So we're going to move on to our next topic now, which is, what is your favorite game you played this year that did not release this year? So James, you can go first. If you want to maybe highlight what some of the games are you played this year, and then what is your game of the year that did not release this year?
I have to remember what all I've played. I've played South Park, The Fractured But Whole, playing Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch. I played Resident Evil 2. Damn, what else did I play earlier this year? I mean, it was 6 months before Last of Us Part 2 came out. I must have been playing something.
Concrete Genie.
Concrete Genie. I'm pretty sure I was playing The Outer Worlds earlier this year because I only got it for Christmas last year.
Yes.
So Outer Worlds as well. That's what I was playing so much Finally, that's what was taking up so much of my time. I was so annoyed because there was 6 months and I couldn't remember what game I was playing. Okay, so it's likely like one of those 6. Recency bias would say that I'd be going towards Ni no Kuni just because I'm really enjoying it.
How many hours in?
But about 14, 15.
Okay.
I'm playing it on Switch, so I play it like an hour and a half, maybe a day.
Yeah. No, just
if that, or like every 2-3 days.
Yeah.
I think out of those games, it's most likely between Ni no Kuni and Resident Evil 2. Because Resi 2 Remake was just... I see why people gave that game so much praise. Like, the design, everything was just excellent. It's mind-blowing. And I don't know what Capcom did, but that engine is beautiful as well.
It's stunning.
For the environments. Especially for, like... It does lighting of dark... Like, it does poor lighting really well.
Yeah, like
for like, you know what I mean, for horror.
I love it.
Yeah. Oh, that engine's great. And so like I think graphically that's so impressive, but then I look at Ni no Kuni, I'm like, it's the same thing. It's realism versus stylized. Ni no Kuni is so stylized, but it's styled by Studio Ghibli, and their animation is so good, and the game is just so cute. And I mean, I'm playing in Japanese. I know you've bought it and you're now playing it in English. So I know Mr. Japanese.
Okay, sorry.
Yep.
It sounded like you said Chinese through Zoom.
Oh, Japanese. Oh yeah, no, it's weird. I'm cutting out for you and you're cutting out for me, aren't we?
A little bit.
But no, I played in Japanese. I know Mr. Drippy. I'm pretty sure he has a terrible Scottish accent, doesn't he? Oh, is it Welsh?
Yeah.
I know he's got a terrible English accent. Like, by English, I just mean the area, not like it's badly done. But, which means I know that it's probably quite funny in English, but I wanted to play it in Japanese just because, it's anime. But yeah, I think I'd have to give it to Resi 2 just because I haven't finished Ni no Kuni yet. So I can't say that I've loved my entire time with it until I'm done. So for the moment, I'm going to say the best game I've played that wasn't released this year was Resi 2.
Nice. Okay, well, I'm going to run through my list quickly because it's a bit of a longish list, not too long. And then I'll give you mine. So I played about 30 hours of Persona 5. I played Rise of the Tomb Raider. I played Doom 2016. I played about 20 to 30 more hours of AC Odyssey. I played but didn't finish.
Did I play Doom this year? Did I also play Doom this year? I may have actually.
Did not finish Shadow of the Colossus. I played Batman Arkham Asylum, Batman Arkham City.
That's what I also played. Shadow of the Colossus.
And then I played Concrete Genie, and I'm busy with Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch, but I'm only about 5 hours in, so I'm not going to let that be a contender. And
you reminded me.
Yeah.
It was Shadow of the Colossus, Wolfenstein, the The New Order, and
yeah?
Doom. Those were the other games I was playing. That's three, but still, I'm going to keep it with Resi 2 anyway.
Cool. Well, my honorable mention, I have to give it to Concrete Genie, just because that game, it was only one day though. I was sad it was so short, but I love my time with it. But my game of the year, which will make you very happy to hear and is very unfair of me to say because I did not finish it, but I had such a good 30 hours with it, is actually Persona 5. I'd say it's a game, the reason I give it the content, or the achievement of being my game of the year, backlog game of the year, whatever you want to call it, is it something I would have never thought I would like. It's something that if you like spoke to me, if you knew me, if you knew who I was, you would know that I've never been a big turn-based guy. I've never finished a Pokemon game. I've never been into anime or JRPGs, and I took a big chance on this game just because of lockdown, and I love my time with it, and I want to finish it. I'm not good at putting time sinks into games. Of like more,
especially since I've told you it's like 110 hours.
Exactly, because like the fact that I've put in 30 hours, knowing that I'm not even halfway, that really is not motivating. But I'll still.
I think there's like 8. I think there's about 8 palaces.
Yeah, and
there's about 8 palaces.
But it's amazing. For some reason, I have to just give it credit for this. I have not gotten tired of the battle theme. I thought it would, but it's so entertaining. That
music is just great. I don't know how they've used there's quite a good number of tracks, but they all sound similar, but yet they're different enough that you just still love them no matter what.
I agree.
There's just so much that just doesn't make sense, that game, how it did some things so well.
And then quickly before we move on to another topic, James, what do you think will be your game of the year by the end of the year?
Well, I'm actually looking at a list of games releasing this year because I'm trying to think. Because there's some things that I might not be excited for, might be very good. So close. Like, I see like Crash Bandicoot 4, that definitely could be a contender for some people considering nostalgia and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I think my toss-up is definitely between Cyberpunk, and it's still not confirmed, but if Disco Elysium releases this year on PS4 and Xbox One, I see it having a large chance of being a console game of the year, considering how much of it won for PC last year. And they've said it's releasing holiday this year. They still haven't given us dates, but I'm praying for that game to release because that game looks amazing. Otherwise, shout out to Spider-Man Miles Morales as a possible contender, but I don't know if it's going to just get snubbed because of it being a much shorter length and being, I feel like the headcanon that everyone that has sort of been confirmed as a stopgap game. Like it's not the true sequel, that it's seen as smaller. Like I don't know if that might affect people thinking of it for Game of the Year, which I'm interested to see. But yeah, otherwise I'm going to go between Cyberpunk and, if it releases, possibly Disco Elysium.
Nice. My prediction for my personal game of the year will probably be Spider-Man Miles Morales. Knowing it's coming to PS4, I will definitely be getting it day one, and I do expect it to be my game of the year, but I have the same kind of worries as you. I do think that maybe it being a shorter and more condensed game, I'll maybe not have as much of a connection with it in terms of comparing that to my experience with The Last of Us Part 2 or what my experience with Cyberpunk 2077 may possibly be. So if that is the case, I do see Cyberpunk maybe snuffing out Last of Us Part 2, but I feel like the emotional roller coaster I went through playing Last of Us Part 2 is enough to kind of keep that as my game of the year. So long story short, I think Spider-Man will probably be it. But if the length does not do it enough justice, it'll probably be Last of Us Part 2, I'd say. It's my prediction.
Quickly, speaking of Cyberpunk, did you see that if you stick to your nomad lifestyle plan, you get to do a quest for Alana Pierce in the game?
No, I did. It's so cool. That's why I'm glad I'm going with nomads. I mean, it's because I knew. It's because I knew.
Oh yeah, of course. You had to see her with her different colored hair in the game.
Yeah. I just need to check. Yeah.
It's pretty cool though, being like seeing a person that I can actually recognize from the internet modeled in the game is pretty cool.
Maybe we'll get put in Cyberpunk 2078.
Oh yeah, of course. You know, I'd rather get put into like Persona 6. Just me with like the super angular jaw, and I'm trying to point.
Elder Scrolls 6.
Huh. Oh yeah, nothing like a giant whacking you and you just glitch into the air.
But yeah, that kind of wraps up our games of the year so far. We'll definitely be revisiting this topic later in the year and maybe just having a look at our predictions of what we thought our games of the year would be and seeing if we were right or wrong. But we're gonna move into
Well then,
hello.
I want to just say, how about saying now to look at later, what do you predict the game of the year overall by the industry will be?
And who are we judging by? What the Game Awards Game of the Year or IGN? I think we just go on Game Awards.
I don't know.
Let's just go on
Yeah,
Game Awards.
yeah, because I guess Game Awards is voted on by a lot of the different press.
Yeah.
So yes, it includes a lot of people.
It's actually a tough
Which
question.
do you think?
It's a tough question. My gut reaction is Last of Us Part 2, but I feel like there was too much controversy around it and too many poor reviews that it won't pull through.
I don't know. There weren't an overwhelming number of poor reviews for it. Review wise, it was actually pretty good. It was a lot of fan reaction that was quite bad, if I remember right.
Game of the Year, that is tough. To be honest, I give Animal Crossing New Horizons a good chance, like a fighting chance, because of the year we just had, how important that game was. So, it's so hard to give a definitive answer. I always give two, and I know that's cheating, but I guess I should stick to it. So I'm gonna go with The Last of Us Part 2. I think that'll be the game of the year.
I'm probably going to go with Cyberpunk 2077.
Never heard of it. All right, let's move on. We got an awesome question.
That awkward moment.
Some kid's going to be like, at the end of the year, the Cyberpunk game, he's going to see in the shop and he's like, I wonder what this is, and then pick it up, buy it. Oh, this is bigger than I thought. Like, I can't wait for those people who don't know who CD Projekt Red are to play their first CD Projekt Red game, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, let's move on to the next topic, which is a cool question in from Alex, again, from Alex Wood, friend of the show. And this question is, what gameplay mechanics or features in games blew your mind at first, but now you take it for granted? James, I have a couple. Do you have a few, or do you just have one?
I've got one I can start with, and I'll probably be able to think of more while you speak.
Okay, cool. Do you want to go ahead?
So for me, one of the features or mechanics that blew my mind the first time I saw it was, in Assassin's Creed, when you first load into a world between sequences, like after a sequence, and it rebuilt the whole world with that mesh like fade in of the buildings building themselves up from nothing. It's not really a feature or gameplay mechanic, but I fell in love with that so much, and I didn't realize I'd taken it for granted until the recent games when it's not there anymore, and I'm so upset.
Sure, actually, I haven't really realized that it's not there anymore.
I'm so upset because it's so cool. Like, it panned over the city and it showed you different bits of the architecture being built, and I always just loved it. It was such a cool like loading effect. Like, I realized it was a loading screen, but it was such a cool loading screen. That was one of them. Otherwise, I think the gameplay mechanic that blew my mind at first, but not necessarily take for granted, more I'm getting to actively dislike, is Ubisoft's use of viewpoints in everything. The viewpoints when I first played Assassin's Creed were amazing. It's like you got up there, you got this view of the whole city, you got to get this panning shot. It was so beautiful, and now their games are just so big that they're just annoying. And it's not that if it relegated itself to Assassin's Creed and was like, this is my home, I'd be fine. But it's in Watch Dogs, it's in Far Cry. Like, I don't know if it's still in Far Cry, but it was.
Yeah.
It was in Watch Dogs. I don't know if it's. I can't remember. I don't think it's in Legion. I don't know if it's going to be in Legion. And I think it's in parts of the Ghost Recon games as well. And I'm just like, Ubisoft, calm down. Towers made sense in Assassin's Creed. You gave us an actual reason to care about that. They were climbing puzzles too. Now they're just Yeah, those are two things that I used to love and that blew my mind. But now I'm just like a bit either upset they're gone or just upset that they're everywhere.
So those are actually really good answers. My first answer is the ping system, which obviously originated in Apex Legends. And at the time blew my mind.
True.
I just didn't think why no one had thought of this up till this point. And now I've taken it so for granted that I want in every game, and it needs Marvel's Avengers needs a ping system. And that's me taking it for granted, thinking every game should just have it now, because that's a game that has multiple objectives, and there's no way of you explaining which one you're going to when there's 3 question marks that look identical. You just have to say, oh, it's the one 250 meters away, and they have to look at all 3 question marks to figure that out. I'd like the ping system in Apex absolutely blew me away, and something that I definitely take for granted now. A second one is actually, it's a little simple thing, but it's sliding and wall running in games. And my first introduction to this was in Black Ops 3, Call of Duty Black Ops 3, with some kind of wall running and sliding, and then obviously Titanfall 2 just did it even better. And it's not necessarily a gameplay mechanic that's used widely, but it's something that at the time was also just simple and new and fresh. And now when I do it in games, like doing it in Star Wars, Jedi Fallen Order and stuff, it kind of...
Marvel's Avengers.
Marvel's Avengers, didn't think twice about it. But I remember at first, just that power sliding and wall running and being able to shoot while wall running, I think that just blew me away at first. I definitely take that for granted now.
That makes sense.
I do have 2 more. Do you have any others you'd like to go with?
I know, you go for it. I'm listening to yours, and if I think of something, I'll say it.
Okay, cool.
Well, after you're done, but I'm sure you got it.
My third one of the 4 is the NPC population, specifically in Assassin's Creed Unity. And the first time playing that game, it also blew me away because I hadn't seen so many NPCs on a screen at that point. And nowadays, games haven't really done it as much, I guess, with the density of Unity had, but they still, nowadays, games are so populated that you don't really think twice about it. But back in, I think it was 2014, Unity released, I remember just being in awe of how many people were walking around Paris and these huge crowds that you could run through. And that absolutely blew my mind. And my last one is actually just online multiplayer. I just have to give a shout out to starting on the Xbox 360. I remember trying Xbox 360 at a friend's house, and we played Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare online, and I was like, no way we're playing with overseas people. These are just NPCs. And they're like, no, these are real people. Plug in them a headset, and this dude started speaking Chinese in my ear, and I was like, oh, hectic, this is legit. So
I thought you were about to say the dude started swearing and calling you racial slurs, because
I don't think
back on Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4, that was the peak of Xbox Live
I know.
toxicity.
And I remember just when I got my own Xbox 360, and you and I used to play Call of Duty Black Ops 2 online. That was my first actual personal experience of a game I owned on a console I owned. And we had way too much fun. I mean, we used to also
hijacked so much.
Yeah, and you used to come over to my house every Tuesday evening, and we would play, and you could still play split screen online together, and that was so much fun. And then when you were home, we just jump onto each of our own Xboxes.
To be fair, that's another thing to take for granted, because it's disappeared.
It has.
Is we took for granted split screen
co-op,
and now it's just gone.
It's still in Call of Duty games. You just can't play online. But something like
but it doesn't make sense why you can't play online. It doesn't make sense why you can't play online with that. I think it's something to do with, remember when you played it on Xbox 360, it was possible to play as just an online guest. But nowadays, I think they want both people to be PlayStation Plus subscribers, for instance. And true.
Maybe it's something to do with
but I mean that you could still let it happen, and then if your friends have got their own profile, you could just have your profile on.
That's
it's weird, but still. I just thought of something, and competent menus. Ever since Destiny released and decided, hey, let's make people on a controller use a cursor that they have to thumb around with a thumbstick instead of the directional buttons that are right there that you can just click. Honestly, it is ridiculous. It is now I think it's in Division, it's in Avengers, it's in Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey. It's probably going to be in Valhalla. It makes no sense. When you've got a mouse and you can move it wherever you want, fine, make it a cursor. If it's not, just let us use the buttons. It makes so much more sense to do that, and you just click into things with X. I I don't know why people think that design is good. It is horrible.
I totally
And
agree with you.
I feel so much like I took for granted all the times I could navigate a menu competently. So upsetting.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. But unfortunately, we are out of time. But yeah, that is just some of the things we take for granted now, that blew us away in games at first. And we'd love to hear what you guys think. So if you want to write in with a gameplay mechanic that blew your mind at first, but you take for granted now, remember you can send that to the email address talknerdywithme21@gmail.com. And that wraps up episode 8 of the Talk Nerdy With Me podcast. James, thank you once again for joining me.
You're welcome. There's nowhere I'd rather be.
I'm sure. And yeah, just like I said, that wraps up this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please drop a like and subscribe on YouTube. And once again, I will definitely be letting you know as soon as Apple lets us on their podcast services. But until then, stay tuned on YouTube. And yeah,
I love how that's still going.
in to talknerdywithme21@gmail.com with any questions or answers. And if you want to go follow us on Instagram @talknerdywithmepodcast. Thank you so much for listening. And this wraps up episode 8. Cheers, guys. We'll see you next week.
Bye.